time itself has come to a halt across the entire town. While hidden experts retreat into silence, ancient powers begin to move beneath the surface. Gu Kan is taken away by a dangerous new master. Liu Xianyang discovers that his talent may be far greater than he ever imagined, and Chen Ping'an is forced to decide what truly matters more: wealth, survival, or protecting the people he cares about. Meanwhile, Ning Yao reveals just how vast the world beyond this town really is. New paths are opening, old bonds are breaking, and the calm before the storm is almost over. This is Sword Comes, Episode 6. In a row of houses in Peach Leaf Alley, a kindly old man sat beneath the covered corridor in a wooden chair. Beside him was a charming young maid with an easy smile. She wore pale yellow trousers embroidered with flowers, wrapped beneath a thin emerald-green silk skirt. As she listened to the old man tell stories, she slowly waved a fan to cool him. The old man suddenly asked, "Tao, where's the breeze? Falling asleep again?" "I'm not trying to frighten you, but if this were one of those households outside the town, laziness like yours would definitely earn you punishment." There was no reply. The old man had always been lenient and kind toward servants, and he was just about to tease her a few more times when his expression abruptly changed. He raised his head and looked into the distance, his face turning grave. Only then did he realize that it was not merely the maid in the courtyard who had frozen in place, fan still raised in her hand. Even the invisible breeze had gone still. The old man immediately held his breath, focused his mind, and silently recited a mnemonic. He entered a state of meditative stillness, guarding his cultivation so the brief reversal in the river of time would not damage his Tao. After a moment he sighed softly. Qi Jingchun, the man who had always followed rules and ritual more strictly than anyone, had finally made an exception and taken action. From this moment onward, the calm before the storm was truly over. Near Iron Lock Well, a broad-shouldered young man from out of town squatted a short distance away, pretending to stare intently at the well wheel. Yet from the corner of his eye, he kept stealing glances at a full-figured village woman drawing water. She bent forward as she hauled a bucket up from the well. Her curves were striking, her heavy chest hanging beneath her as she worked, her body displaying a lush, untamed vitality. Her face was ordinary, nothing that would normally draw much attention, yet somehow the fullness of her figure gave her an entirely different kind of charm. When the young man realized the entire world around him had fallen into an eerie stillness, he did not move. If anything, he grew bolder. Now he stared openly at the village woman's frozen pose. He swallowed quietly, then shifted his squat into a slightly different position. No wonder his master had once said that women beneath the mountain were like tigers leaving the forest. Away from their territory, their power weakened. But once you brought one back up the mountain, she became a tiger claiming the peak for herself, and then she would devour men. Whenever his master got drunk, he would always say that every so-called hero and great man beneath heaven had ultimately been defeated by the tiger he brought into his own mountain. Without exception. The young man, however, thought a tiger outside the mountain was already terrifying enough. Take the woman before him. Her looks were plain, yet she somehow made his heart itch unbearably. If she suddenly turned around and slapped him across the face without explanation, he suspected he still would not dare hit her back. If she smiled afterward, he might even smile along with her. Thinking about it left him strangely dejected. He lowered his head, glanced at the front of his trousers, and cursed under his breath. No spine at all. No wonder you've got no backbone. In Mud Bottle Alley, Song Jixin was leafing through a thick and ancient county gazetteer. Over time, he had discovered many patterns within it. For example, the record seemed to expand roughly once every 60 years, so he privately nicknamed the book the Cycle Gazetteer. There was another curious pattern. When young townspeople were taken by distant relatives or supposed family connections, almost none of them ever returned home. It was as if they had no desire for fallen leaves to return to their roots. Instead, they blossomed beyond the walls. Many clans spread branches and leaves outside the town, eventually growing into towering family trees with deep and immovable roots. For that reason, Song Jixin also jokingly called the book Beyond the Wall. At the moment, he was reading a biographical entry about a man named Cao Shi. The gazetteer's greatest characteristic was its extreme stinginess with words. Song Jixin had read the whole volume at least 7 or 8 times and knew much of it by heart. So whenever he idly opened it now, he usually chose stories about strange people and unusual events, treating them almost like legendary tales from a storyteller. Whether those stories were entirely true was impossible to verify. Song Jixin did not particularly care. What he did remember clearly was the man in official robes who had once left the town to return to the capital and report on his duties. Late one night before departing, that man had come here alone. With extraordinary seriousness, he told Song Jixin to remember one thing. He must memorize every single name that had ever appeared in the gazetteer. Not only the names but also the hundreds and thousands of people connected to them, the ancestral foundations those people traced back to inside the town, and especially the relationships surrounding the 4 great surnames and 10 major clans. Now Song Jingchun sat completely motionless. He resembled the weather-worn clay statues scattered southeast of town, figures that had toppled long ago into weeds and dirt, yet remained unmoving through wind and rain. Moonlight shone through the window onto the desk. Even the light seemed trapped in unnatural stillness. Inside the house, only 2 living things could move. One was Jigui. The other was the inconspicuous lizard. Jigui had noticed the strange change almost immediately. Her first impulse was to go next door, find that expressionless girl, and give her a thorough scolding. But the moment she remembered the sword in that house, the appealing idea vanished. She first went into her young master's room and glanced at the open page. The instant she saw the name Cao Shi, irritation appeared on her face. She casually flipped several pages ahead. Only when she reached the entry concerning Shi did she smile happily. Then she abruptly became annoyed with herself and quickly flipped the pages back. She could not afford to reveal heavenly secrets and expose the truth about herself. Over the years, she had known that Song Jingchun's suspicions about her origins came mostly from curiosity. He had never possessed any hard evidence. Jigui had no intention of ruining everything at the final moment. Just before her great undertaking reached completion, she often followed Song Jingchun to the village school and had heard many sayings from scholars. Some struck her as shameless nonsense. For example, sacrifice left to preserve righteousness. But some sounded quite reasonable. One in particular had completely convinced her. For a journey of 100 li, 90 li is only halfway. The ochre-colored lizard was sprawled near the doorway, usually fond of basking in the sun. Now, with everything frozen in silence, it quietly revealed its true body. Under the light, multicolored radiance flowed across it. Its entire form became clear and translucent, as though carved from a single piece of colored glass. In the neighboring courtyard, Ning Yao had entered a profound state of embryonic breathing. She no longer breathed through mouth or nose. Instead, like an unborn child still within the womb, her spirit returned to its root while every distracting thought dissolved. Inside the snow-white scabbard, the flying sword seemed to receive a pardon. It slowly slid free. Then it began circling its master. At times it was gentle and affectionate, like a bird nestling close to a person. At others, its movement had the flowing beauty of a woman with long sleeves drifting through the air. It was not flying randomly. The sword traced invisible patterns like a talisman drawn through empty space, constructing the most favorable field of Qi around its owner and helping her heal. Sure enough, although Ning Yao showed no visible sign of breathing, the surrounding spiritual Qi suddenly surged toward her. She absorbed the fundamental spiritual energy of this small world, like a person swallowing great mouthfuls of water. Thus, at that moment, the deathly stillness covering the entire town stood in sharp contrast to the surging currents of Qi within that little house. South of the town, beyond its outskirts, stood a stocky man with thick brows and large eyes. His build was compact, but the sharpness of his presence was almost oppressive. His chest was partly exposed. In one hand he held an iron hammer. He brought it down. Clang, sparks exploded in every direction and lit the entire forge. Countless points of fire flew through the spacious room, like stars scattered across the night. One swing of the hammer was enough to create an entire picture. Standing opposite the blacksmith was a petite girl with a neat ponytail. A cowhide cape covered her body to protect her from flying sparks. Ordinary cotton clothing would have been burned full of holes. The hammer fell once more. Thousands upon thousands of sparks erupted. Then the entire room stopped. The ponytailed girl frowned. "Father?" The man said in a low voice. "Your turn. Hammer your own sword. Use this opportunity to temper your spirit and intent." The girl released the old sword she had been holding and brushed aside the sparks floating before her. Her casual movement disturbed the frozen points of fire. Like tugging one strand and shaking the entire web, the river of time that should have remained still among the sparks began to tremble. Points of fire knocked into one another repeatedly, filling the forge with chaotic, scattered light. Compared with the older, hidden experts throughout the town, those latent dragons who had all quieted their breathing, calmed their minds, and entered meditation, the girl's behavior was outrageously domineering. When she took up the hammer, it became even more obvious. Her strikes were heavy and violent, her movements fierce and swift. In sheer wildness, she surpassed even the experienced blacksmith beside her. Each blow sent sparks flying, yet because time had been stilled, those sparks did not fade. Strike after strike piled more fire into the air. Soon the forge was packed with glittering points of light, like a sky overflowing with stars. A sword-forging chamber, 100 million sparks. The man stared fixedly at the red-hot sword blank. He ordered in a deep voice, "Silently recite the dragon-shaking chapter from the sword-forging scripture." The girl's imposing momentum instantly dropped. Father? Man snapped. What? Her momentum fell even farther. She said timidly, I didn't eat much at noon. I'm hungry. I can't swing the hammer anymore. The man nearly exploded. If they had not been in the middle of forging a sword, he would have started cursing on the spot. You act like reading a book is the same as taking your life, and now you're making excuses, damn it. With an appetite like yours, being hungry actually is normal. Fine. That one really isn't an excuse. The girl secretly smiled. Although she claimed to be hungry, not one of her hammer strokes weakened. Then a flash of inspiration struck her. She shouted and poured every ounce of strength into one final blow. For reasons she could not explain, she roared, Come out! This time the explosion of sparks was richer than ever, brighter than ever. The man showed no expression, but inwardly he thought only one word, done. In Gukan's courtyard, the woman slowly regained consciousness. Her head felt as though it had been split by an axe. With the child supporting her, she returned to her chair and sat down. River-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao had his eyes closed, resting his spirit. Hidden inside his sleeve, his middle and index fingers moved slowly through a sequence of calculations. Mamgu pulled her son down to sit beside her and asked softly, Immortal Elder, how is it? Without opening his eyes, the old man said, This old man has taken in a fine disciple. And you, Madame Gu, have given birth to a fine son. You can simply wait for the day when a mother rises in status through her child. Madame Gu was overwhelmed with joy. Tears filled her eyes. She wrapped both arms around Gukan and murmured tenderly, His father, can you hear me? Our Gukan is going to have a great future. Liu Zhimao suddenly made a sound of surprise. His eyes opened. He looked down at the lines of his palm as if one of them had abruptly changed direction and branched into an entirely new path. He muttered, Why? That shouldn't be possible. The boy didn't die, but an immortal disciple died for no reason? The old man had no choice but to stand. He paced slowly through the courtyard, fingers calculating with increasing speed. Useless trash, to fall at the hands of a street brat. Cloud Glow Mountain spent 1,000 years accumulating that reputation, and she ruined it in an instant. Madame Gu spoke uneasily. Immortal Elder, since Canner is already going to become your disciple, why not let Chen Ping'an go? The old man rounded on her. Woman's softness. If you truly had a merciful heart, then when you and I first met, you would never have entertained thoughts of killing anyone. And now you want to pretend to be some compassionate bodhisattva in front of this old man? Have you no shame? Madame Gu went pale from the rebuke. She lowered her eyes and did not dare utter another word. Still angry, Liu Zhimao pointed at her and continued. An ignorant village woman with shallow vision. Once Gukan follows me back to Shujian Lake, the number of times you mother and son meet must never be too frequent. I will not allow you to interfere with his cultivation. Do you object? Madame Gu hurriedly waved both hands. I wouldn't dare. Liu Zhimao's gaze turned cold. Madame Gu froze. Then she quickly understood. Her face became pleading and pitiful. I mean, I would never dare object. Absolutely not. The old man flung his sleeve. You're infuriating. Earlier, he had thought this woman still possessed a certain mature charm, and had even considered taking her back as a personal servant. But after her recent display, he lost much of that interest. If she missed even the faint possibility of stepping onto the path of cultivation because of it, then she had only herself to blame. Suddenly, Liu Zhimao's expression changed. He looked around as though facing a great enemy. So this strange stillness covering the world truly was a still realm. Such a phenomenon was comparable to a small grotto heaven appearing within the mortal world. Even a land immortal or golden body arhat could only dream of opening such a thing with their own strength. This kind of divine power stood at the absolute summit. True, much of the credit belonged to the great formation beneath the town. Even so, the result was terrifying enough to inspire awe. Imagine it. So long as you stood within this world, whether the beings who entered were immortals, Buddhas, gods, demons, ghosts, or monsters, every one of them would be forced to bow their heads before you. What kind of feeling would that be? River-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao dreamed of reaching such heights. Those who said that profound techniques should be hidden and rarely used could go to hell. If Liu Zhimao possessed a private grotto heaven like this, he would gladly drag in 3 generations of disciples from the Buddha, the Tao ancestor, and the Confucian sage himself. Perhaps he would not dare make them bow at the waist. But at the very least, everyone could sit as equals and address one another as peers. Without warning, Liu Zhimao spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, blood burst from his palm as though an invisible blade had sliced a deep wound into the flesh. The white bowl also appeared uncontrollably in his other hand. Its surface churned with chaotic ripples. Black lines thrashed wildly through the water, crashing against the sides of the bowl. Liu Zhimao did not hesitate for even a heartbeat. He placed one palm over the back of the other hand. Though he came from an unorthodox Taoist lineage, he now performed a Confucian bow. He bent deeply, almost to the ground. His reverence could not have been more sincere. His voice trembled. Liu Zhimao, master of Azure Gorge Island and Shujian Lake, humbly begs Master Qi to show mercy. This junior only seeks the Tao with sincerity. If I have offended you in any way, I beg that your greatness know that a sage does not lower himself to quarrel with one so small. A long time passed. Then, leave as soon as possible. The 4 words exploded beside the true lord's ears like spring thunder. Liu Zhimao nearly wept with joy. Rest assured, sir, this junior will immediately take Madame Gu and her son out of the town. There was still one matter weighing on his mind. He cautiously asked, "May I ask, sir, how should this junior deal with the 2 pouches of golden essence coins currently in my possession?" The majestic voice sounded again. "1 person, 1 object. Exactly 2 opportunities. Leave them in the courtyard. For the next 30 years, you are forbidden from leaving Shujian Lake by even half a step." Liu Zhimao felt as though an enormous stone had been lifted from his chest. This time, he did not attempt the flattering Confucian salute he had used before. Instead, he performed a solemn Taoist bow. When an elder grants a gift, a junior does not dare refuse. Master Qi's immense grace will be carved into this junior's organs and bones. I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Qi Jingchun's voice did not sound again. Soon afterward, the still realm vanished as well. Liu Zhimao wasted no words. He immediately ordered Madame Gu to gather Gu Can and follow him out of the town. Madame Gu opened her mouth as though wanting to say something. Liu Zhimao shot her a murderous glare. She instantly became silent as a cicada in winter. The old man took out 2 embroidered pouches. Though reluctance flashed through his heart, the unorthodox Taoist who dreamed of one day becoming a true lord, in more than name, still placed them on the chair without hesitation. But just as he reached the courtyard gate, he suddenly turned around. "Does your family have any old objects left behind by previous generations?" Madame Gu stared blankly. Gu Can's eyes immediately darted about. "Didn't father leave behind a lot of treasures? The dusty things hidden under the bed?" Liu Zhimao's eyes lit up. Without another word, he ordered the woman to lead the way. If that sage had personally confirmed that Gu Can himself counted as an opportunity, then naturally the child should be allowed to take away opportunities that belonged to him. As for who ultimately owned those things, inside this town even the Heavenly King himself would have to listen to Qi Jingchun. But once they reached Shujian Lake, that would be another matter. At last, Gu Can found himself momentarily unwatched. The instant the 2 adults entered the room, the child grabbed both embroidered pouches from the chair. He quietly pulled open the bolt. Then he sprinted toward the other end of Mud Bottle Alley. Inside the room, Madame Gu knelt on the floor and reached beneath the bed, trying to drag out a chest. It was not especially large, but it was extremely heavy. The effort left her panting. Then river-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao gave her full backside a hard kick. The old man joked, "Madame Gu, you'd better take better care of yourself from now on. If this is all you've got, becoming a 2nd-rank maid on Azure Gorge Island would be a stretch. 3rd rank should still be manageable. This old man may not have much interest in you, but there are several guests on Azure Gorge Island who enjoy pleasant conversation. Their mouths aren't nearly as clever as yours. When the time comes, make sure you seize the opportunity. Don't pretend to be shy and throw away another blessing for nothing." Madame Gu's body stiffened slightly. More than half of her was still beneath the bed, so no one could see the expression on her face. As they walked into another alley, Qi Jingchun said to Chen Ping'an, "Leave Qi Jingchun and Fu Nanhua to me. Now that you possess this ancestral scholar tree leaf, you have even less reason to waste your own life. Living well is the greatest repayment you can offer your parents." As for Cloud Glow Mountain, Old Dragon City, and river-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao, those 3 forces may not leave you alone forever. I cannot promise that. But for the next 10 years, they certainly will not come looking for trouble. If your luck is good and you remain an ordinary commoner, you may even live peacefully for 30 years. Qi Jingchun smiled. You also don't need to remain so wary of this town. Before long, these endless schemes should no longer exist here. If you want to spend the next 20 or 30 years living quietly, you can find a girl here, marry her, establish a household, and live an ordinary life. If you want to leave the town and see what the greater world truly looks like, that would also be good. To read 10,000 books and travel 10,000 li, those are things scholars like us are supposed to do. You'll discover something interesting once you leave. Here in the town, books are difficult to obtain, but traveling is easy. Outside, many scholars find it easy to buy books, read books, and collect books. The only thing they dislike is traveling far. They consider it too troublesome and painful. What they call carrying books on their backs to study abroad usually means sitting comfortably in a carriage while touring the world. Chen Ping'an looked genuinely surprised. Master Qi, walking counts as hardship? Qi Jingchun laughed freely. Forget the outside world for now. Just look around you. How many boys your age from Fortune Street or Peachleaf Alley have you ever seen running wild through mountains and fields the way you do? Chen Ping'an nodded. That's true. Qi Jingchun thought for a moment. Then he reached up and removed a green jade hairpin from his topknot. Turning, he offered it to the impoverished boy. Consider this a farewell gift. It isn't especially valuable, and it isn't an immortal treasure, so you can accept it without worry. In truth, I was once like you. I was also a boy from a poor alley. I studied bitterly and endured one hardship after another, one setback after another. Of course, I also encountered various opportunities along the way. Eventually, I entered Cliff Academy. The years I spent there studying beneath my teacher were the happiest years of my life. Later, when my teacher left the mountain, he gave me this hairpin. It was both an expectation and a reminder. Unfortunately, looking back today, so many years have passed and I still failed to do what I should have done well. If my teacher were still alive, I believe he would be disappointed in me. Chen Ping'an did not dare accept it. This jade hairpin seemed to contain the bond between Qi Jingchun and his own teacher. Its emotional weight alone was immense, and the object itself did not look cheap. Chen Ping'an might not recognize precious artifacts, but he had grown up among people who fired porcelain for the emperor. He still had some eye for whether an object was well made. Qi Jingchun spoke gently. If it remains with me, this relic of my teacher will disappear together with me. It would be better to give it to you. Besides, you are not receiving something without merit. I have remained in this town for nearly 60 years, and all that time I carried a small knot in my heart that I could never untie. My teacher has already passed away. I once believed I would never find an answer in this lifetime. Yet you accidentally resolved that doubt for me. So giving this hairpin to you is appropriate in sentiment, reason, and ritual. Chen Ping'an, I could only help you obtain one scholar tree leaf. I cannot give you more opportunities than that. Chen Ping'an accepted the ordinary-looking jade hairpin with both hands. He looked up sincerely. Sir, you've already done a great deal. Qi Jingchun smiled and said nothing more. Seeing that the boy had finally been persuaded to accept the hairpin relieved one final burden from his heart. The jade itself was indeed ordinary, but it was still his teacher's relic. To give it now to a boy who did not even own a single carved hairpin of his own felt right. So Qi Jingchun gave him one final warning. Chen Ping'an, remember this. No matter what happens to you in the future, you must never lose hope in this world. At the far end of Mud Bottle Alley, a little troublemaker stood outside a house holding 2 snails and violently kicking the door. He cursed so loudly that spit flew from his mouth. Chen Ping'an, if you don't get your ass out here, I'll find someone to chop you to death and kick down this whole rotten house. I know you're home. What are you so busy doing? Don't tell me you're in there with Song Jisun's little wife, doing something with Ji Gui? In broad daylight too. Don't you have any consideration for Song Jisun's feelings? Fine, fine. If you're not coming out, forget it. I'm leaving. I'm really leaving. Once I go, you'll never see me again in this lifetime. I was going to leave all my treasures to you. Chen Ping'an, come out already. For some reason, by the time Gu Can reached the end of his rant, a sob had entered his voice. He furiously pulled the 2 snails back toward their shells. Then suddenly his skull felt as though someone had knocked it. He whipped around. The instant he saw that familiar face, he shouted, Chen Ping'an, your grandfather. Then he noticed that the straw-sandaled boy's expression was rather poor. Gu Can changed direction with astonishing speed. Is in good health, right? The transition was smooth, effortless, and entirely shameless. Chen Ping'an had long since grown accustomed to this little brat's lack of restraint. Holding a porcelain jar against his chest, he replied irritably, Whether he is or not, don't you already know? Gu Can suddenly remembered that he had serious business. He dragged Chen Ping'an toward the courtyard entrance and stubbornly shoved 2 beautifully embroidered pouches into his hands. Lowering his voice, he asked, Do you remember the little loach I begged from you last year? Chen Ping'an looked confused. The 2 pouches were heavy. He recognized their type. Back then, the richly dressed boy who insisted on buying the golden carp had later sent Chen Ping'an one such pouch of coins as compensation. Chen Ping'an immediately looked left and right. There was no one at either end of Mud Bottle Alley. He quickly opened the gate and pulled Gu Can inside. After setting the porcelain jar down, he asked directly, Someone from outside wants to buy that little loach from you, right? Gu Can, listen to me. No matter what happens, do not sell it. Even if they beat you to death, don't sell it. Don't you want your mother to live a good life someday? You absolutely have to keep that loach. Understand? Gu Can burst into tears. He grabbed Chen Ping'an's sleeves with both hands and sobbed. I wanted to give the loach back to you, but mother wouldn't let me. She even slapped me. She's never hit me once since I was little. And that storyteller, I don't know if he's an immortal or a ghost, but he's terrifying. First he took me inside that white bowl. Then the loach suddenly became huge. Really, really huge. Much bigger than the water vat at our house. Chen Ping'an immediately covered the child's mouth with one hand. His expression turned stern. The loach was given to you. That means it's yours. Gu Can, don't you want your mother to live well from now on? Don't you want her to eat meat every day? To use rouge? To wear silk clothes that feel smooth when you touch them? Gu Can sniffled and nodded fiercely. Chen Ping'an released him, crouched down, and asked, "What's the story with these 2 pouches? Did you steal them?" Gu Can's eyes darted sideways. He was clearly about to lie, but Chen Ping'an knew him far too well. This little bastard only had to twitch his backside, and Chen Ping'an knew exactly what kind of trouble he was about to cause. Chen Ping'an immediately knocked him on the head. "Take them back." Gu Can became stubborn. "No!" Chen Ping'an's face darkened with anger. He raised his hand, ready to give the brat a genuine hard knock this time. But when he saw Gu Can's shamelessly defiant expression, his heart softened. He lowered his voice instead. "What exactly happened? Tell me everything." Gu Can recounted the whole matter from beginning to end. The boy normally made people grind their teeth in frustration, but there was no denying that he had been clever from a very young age. From the old scholar tree to Iron Lock Well, then back to the courtyard in Mud Bottle Alley, he explained clearly how the storyteller had decided to accept him as a disciple. By the time Gu Can finished, Chen Ping'an roughly understood. Gu Can was probably one of the townspeople who possessed ancestral scholar tree protection of his own. Whether that meant his ancestors were blessing him, or, as Master Qi and Taoist Liu had said, that he possessed exceptional fortune and opportunity, the result was the same. The storyteller would most likely take Gu Can away from the town, but when Chen Ping'an remembered that the man was river-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao, his heart tightened. According to Master Qi, Liu Zhimao's character was truly poor. In order to quickly eliminate Chen Ping'an, he had not hesitated to use immortal methods to manipulate both him and Qi Jingchun. Was becoming the disciple of such a man really a good thing for Gu Can? On the other hand, Liu Zhimao genuinely wanted Gu Can as his disciple. He was not trying to kill him, deceive him, or force him into a transaction. Perhaps that at least meant Gu Can's life was not in immediate danger. The child's cunning eyes spun rapidly. While Chen Ping'an was distracted by thought, Gu Can suddenly grabbed the 2 pouches from his hands and threw them into the room. Then he turned and ran. Chen Ping'an caught him by the back of the neck and dragged him straight back. Gu Can covered his head with both hands and put on an extremely pitiful expression. Chen Ping'an had physically pulled him back, but he still did not know what to do with the money. The stakes were too high. He was terrified that one wrong decision would drag Gu Can and his mother into disaster. If this had concerned only himself, the orphan straw-sandaled boy would probably have made a clean, decisive choice long ago. At some point, the girl in black had gotten out of bed. She now stood behind the doorway. "I once said that everyone has their own fate and opportunities. One look at this brat, and you can tell he's the kind of disaster that survives for 1,000 years. He'll never lack people whose luck is as filthy as dog shit." Gu Can's eyes instantly lit up. He hurriedly wiped away the 2 streams beneath his nose, revealed a gap-toothed grin, and flattered her shamelessly. "Big sister, you're really pretty, just like my second sister. This place is too small. Why don't you come sit at my house?" Chen Ping'an said helplessly. "When exactly did your mother remarry and give your father another daughter?" Exposed immediately, Gu Can rolled his eyes. His face and tone changed in an instant. "Sks. Chen Ping'an, not bad. Since when did you trick a woman into your house? Planning to enter the bridal chamber? What a shame I got here too late. Otherwise I'd sit outside the wall and listen to you 2 having an immortal battle on the bed." Chen Ping'an slapped him on the head. Then he apologized to the girl in black. "He's always like this. Don't be angry." The girl glanced at Gu Can. Little beast. Gu Can was just about to display the full strength of his family's foul-mouthed inheritance when he felt the hand resting on his head tighten slightly. He immediately wilted. Weakly, he said, "Big sister, you're so fresh and pretty. Whatever you say must be right." The girl in black ignored him. She looked at Chen Ping'an instead, her words carrying deeper meaning. "You should keep those 2 pouches. Otherwise, the 2 of you may become enemies over this someday. And if this child succeeds in cultivation in the future, then if you refuse to let him reduce even a little of the guilt in his heart today, it may destabilize his Tao heart. That could give inner demons and external evils an opening." Gu Can liked those words very much. He immediately gave her a thumbs up. "Long hair, long wisdom. Sure enough, you're more reliable than those women next door." From far down Mud Bottle Alley came an anxious, furious roar. "Gu Can!" The child's face went slightly pale. Time to go! Time to go! Chen Ping'an, I'm leaving!" His mouth said he had to leave, but he did not realize that his fingers had tightened around Chen Ping'an's hand. Perhaps somewhere in his subconscious, Gu Can had long since regarded Chen Ping'an as the only family he had besides his mother. Chen Ping'an led him out of the courtyard. He crouched down and spoke quietly. "Gu Can, remember to be careful around your master, and take good care of your mother. You're going to be a man someday. From now on, your mother can only rely on you. Don't make her worry." Gu Can answered softly, Chen Ping'an continued. When you're outside, do more and talk less. Keep your mouth under control. It's fine to suffer a small loss now and then. Don't always open your mouth trying to gain an advantage. People outside aren't like us. They'll remember grudges. Gu Kan's eyes turned red. He immediately argued back. People here remember grudges too. You're the only one who doesn't. Chen Ping'an did not know whether to laugh or cry. For a moment, he had nothing to say. Then he suddenly remembered something. His expression became serious. Gu Kan, did you get any scholar tree leaves? If Gu Kan did not have them, then Chen Ping'an could not be certain the boy truly possessed an immortal opportunity. Perhaps the storyteller's appearance was not a blessing at all, but a death warrant. At the mention of the leaves, Gu Kan immediately became furious. He plunged a hand into his clothes and pulled out a thick bundle. Then he started cursing. I don't know which bastard deserves to be cut into 1,000 pieces, but somebody secretly stuffed all these rotten leaves into my clothes. I only found them when I sneaked out and hid the 2 pouches. If it wasn't Fatty Zhao, then it was that lying girl Lu Mei. If mother had found these while washing my clothes, she would have yelled at me for sure. Good thing I'm leaving. Otherwise, I'd throw rocks into their latrine when they weren't looking. Gu Kan continued cursing for quite a while. Chen Ping'an first stared in stunned silence. Then he visibly relaxed. When he saw Gu Kan repeatedly trying to throw the leaves onto the ground, he immediately stopped him. His expression was extraordinarily serious. Gu Kan, keep all of them. You absolutely must keep them safe. If you can't, it may even be better not to show them to your mother. That might actually protect her. Gu Kan stared blankly, but he still nodded. Okay. Chen Ping'an let out a long breath. This time, I'm really relieved. Gu Kan suddenly leaned forward and smashed his forehead against Chen's. His voice choked. I'm sorry! Chen Ping'an rubbed the small head and laughed as he cursed. Idiot! Then Gu Kan leaned close and whispered something into his ear. Chen Ping'an froze. The child spun around and ran. As he jogged away, he kept turning back to wave. That old man said he's taking mother and me to a place called Shujian Lake, Azure Gorge Island. If you're so useless in the future that you can't even find a wife, come look for me. I'm not bragging. Girls as ugly as Jigwei next door? I'll give you 17 or 18 of them. Chen Ping'an remained where he was and nodded. A faint sadness settled over him. Gu Kan had always been like a younger brother. Whenever there was something good, Chen Ping'an was willing to let the child have it. He stood in the alley and watched Gu Kan's small figure slowly disappear into the distance. His thoughts drifted. His life always seemed to be like this. The people he truly cared about never seemed to stay. The straw-sandaled boy smiled anyway. Heaven was truly stingy. The gate of the neighboring courtyard opened softly. Jigwei stepped out. She had grown graceful like a lotus rising from still water. Chen Ping'an asked, You heard all the nonsense Gu Kan said about you just now? Her long autumn water eyes blinked. I'll pretend I didn't. I can't win an argument against that mother and son anyway. Chen Ping'an looked slightly embarrassed. He could only put in a good word for Gu Kan. He actually has a good heart. His mouth is just a little unpleasant. Jigwei's face remained expressionless. The corner of her mouth lifted faintly. Whether Gu Kan's heart is good or bad, I don't know. But his widowed mother is definitely not easy to deal with. That much I'm certain of. Chen Ping'an had no idea how to answer, so he copied her method from a moment earlier and pretended he had heard nothing. Suddenly, Jigwei asked a strange question. Chen Ping'an, do you really not regret it? He stared at her. What? Seeing that he truly did not understand rather than pretending to be stupid, Jigwei sighed. She turned, went back into her courtyard, and shut the wooden gate. Chen Ping'an remained standing in the alley. His eyesight was exceptionally sharp. Far away, he finally saw the door to Gu Kan's house open. 3 people emerged. Madame Gu and Gu Kan each carried bundles of different sizes. They slowly walked toward the opposite end of Mud Bottle Alley. Chen Ping'an could even clearly see the storyteller turn his head and glance back at him. An amused smile appeared on Liu Zhimao's face. Only after the 3 figures disappeared at the end of the alley did Chen Ping'an return to his own courtyard. The girl in black was already able to sit on the threshold by herself. Was her body forged from iron bones? Chen Ping'an first placed the jade hairpin given to him by Master Qi on the table. Then he set down the 2 pouches Gu Kan had brought. After that, he began boiling water, preparing herbs and decocting medicine. His movements were smooth and familiar. He looked less like someone who had spent years around kilns than someone who had worked in an herbal medicine shop for half his life. The girl in black looked curious but did not ask. Bored, she rose and walked to the table. After thinking for a moment, she casually reached into the jar where Chen Ping'an had hidden his earlier pouch of money and pulled that one out too. Once she sat down, the table held 3 pouches and a jade hairpin. And of course, there was also the sentient sword that had tactfully shrunk into itself in a corner. Chen Ping'an did not stop her from touching the money. But he turned and warned, the jade hairpin was given to me by Master Qi. Miss Ning, please be careful with it. Perhaps afraid she might not take him seriously, Chen Ping'an added with an embarrassed blush. Really, please be careful. The girl gave him a disdainful look. 3 pouches of golden essence coins, spring welcoming coins, offering coins, victory suppressing coins. What a coincidence. Exactly 1 of each. The girl propped her cheek on one hand. With the other, she extended a finger and idly nudged 3 coins around the table. So what happened to you? Can you tell me? Chen Ping'an was crouched near the wall beneath the window, carefully watching the fire. From time to time, he checked the 3 prescription sheets. When he heard her question, he asked, "Is it appropriate for me to tell you?" The girl frowned. "You're already in this much trouble and you're still worried that if I hear some secret, someone will come kill me to silence me? Chen Ping'an, I'm serious. A person like you who constantly thinks of yourself as a good person should probably never leave this town. If you do, you may die without even knowing how it happened." Her tone was full of that feeling one had when mourning another person's misfortune, while being furious at their refusal to fight for themselves. A boy with such an old-fashioned temperament would not survive long where she came from. Even if he possessed the golden body of an arhat, the Taoist power of a heavenly lord, or the strength of a mighty sword immortal, once he entered her homeland he would probably be dead within a year. And there might not even be a corpse left. The straw-sandaled boy smiled cheerfully. "Then I'll tell you?" The girl pressed 3 fingers over the 3 coins and rubbed them back and forth across the tabletop. "Tell me or don't." So Chen Ping'an told her everything that had happened before Master Qi appeared. As for what came afterward, he only selected certain parts. When he finished, Ning Yao said indifferently, "That river-severing true Lord Liu Zhimao is obviously the main culprit. But Cai Jinjian and Funanhua were hardly decent people either. If Master Qi hadn't stepped in to clean up the mess, then even if you fled to the ends of the earth, you wouldn't escape the 3 forces hunting you down. To put it bluntly, killing you would be extremely easy. If this weren't the town, forget Liu Zhimao. That woman from Cloudglow Mountain alone could crush you with 1 finger and scatter your soul." Chen Ping'an nodded. "I know." Ning Yao snapped angrily. "You know nothing." Chen Ping'an did not argue. He continued decocting the medicine. She asked, "The entire calamity started because of that loach. Why didn't you tell the child the truth?" This time Chen Ping'an did not remain silent, nor did he turn around. Sitting low by the stove, he looked down at the blue-red flames and said softly, "That would be wrong." Ning Yao opened her mouth, then stopped. Finally, she looked at his thin back and sighed. "Do you understand that if your fist isn't hard enough, no one will care whether you're right or wrong?" The boy shook his head. "Whether other people listen or not, what's right is still right." He seemed a little uncertain, so he turned around and smiled at her. "Isn't it?" Ning Yao glared. "Isn't it your head?" The boy turned back awkwardly and continued tending the medicine. Ning Yao picked up the green jade hairpin. She examined it carefully and discovered a tiny line of characters carved into it. She glanced toward Chen Ping'an. There were 8 characters on the hairpin. Even a girl who was not especially fond of letters found them deeply moving. To speak of a gentleman, warm and gentle as jade. Decocting medicine required the sort of precision one used when threading a needle. Chen Ping'an handled every step methodically. As he immersed himself in the work, a strange happiness seemed to radiate from him. Ning Yao, however, was not a patient person. Aside from practicing saber and sword, almost nothing interested her for long. She had left home when very young and traveled alone across distant lands. Her life had been full of storms. She had slept beneath the open sky often enough that Chen Ping'an's tiny house, bare except for 4 walls, did not bother her in the slightest. A person who had endured wind, rain, dust, and wilderness for years eventually stopped caring about comfort. She asked, "Your left hand is all right?" Chen Ping'an had already wrapped it in strips of cotton cloth. He was now carrying over a bowl of medicine with both hands. After Ning Yao accepted it, he smiled. "It's fine. Before coming back to the alley, I found some herbs, crushed them, and applied them to the wound. When I worked at the kilns and tore open my flesh from falls, I always used the same method. It never failed. An old man at the Yang family medicine shop taught me the secret remedy a long time ago, but I promised him I wouldn't pass it on. Otherwise, Miss Ning, since you travel everywhere, you might find it useful. If you want it, I can go ask the old man at the Yang shop for permission. I went there in a hurry today and didn't see him. I only hope he was temporarily away." As Ning Yao drank, her long, narrow brows, more like slender sabers than willow leaves, drew together slightly. Even so, she finished the entire bowl without changing expression. She returned it to Chen Ping'an, who was waiting beside her, and muttered, "Good person. No wonder you're dirt poor and everyone bullies you." Before he could react, she added, "Don't mind me, I speak very directly." She probably had no idea that the second sentence hurt even more than the first. Chen Ping'an opened his mouth, then closed it again. Ning Yao wiped the last trace of medicine from the corner of her mouth with her thumb. Then she sat upright and spoke with unusual seriousness. The sage currently overseeing this small world, the school teacher you mentioned, may genuinely want to settle matters for you and make sure your life is safe afterward. But you need to understand that human strength has limits. Even sages are no exception, and Master Qi's current situation sounds extremely delicate. He's like a clay bodhisattva crossing a river, barely able to preserve himself. What I'm afraid of is that later he won't be able to interfere with your life or death. As for me, Ning Yao has always lived by simple rules. If someone gives me a drop of kindness, I repay it with a spring. If someone glares at me once, I glare back. Human strength has limits. Repay a drop with a spring. Return every glare. A clay bodhisattva, crossing a river. Ning Yao's heart filled with pride no one else could understand. Listen to that. Didn't she sound remarkably learned? Unfortunately, Chen Ping'an had spent years living beside Song Jishan. Though Song Jishan had never become a true scholar, he recited sayings from the classics every dawn and dusk, claiming that a man needed to cultivate upright and unyielding spirit. So while Chen Ping'an had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. He was not unfamiliar with scholarly language. Even if certain phrases were obscure, he could usually infer most of the meaning from context. Ning Yao stared hard at Chen Ping'an, hoping to find shock, admiration, or confusion on his face. Instead, he wore the infuriating expression of someone thinking, "I understand. Go on." Her soaring enthusiasm collapsed. "Annoyed?" she said. "For example, you saved my life. So later I can help you kill Fu Nanhua of Old Dragon City or Liu Zhimao of Shujian Lake. But if you want me to kill both of them and eliminate all future trouble, that costs money. You and I only met by chance. We aren't close enough for that. So you would need to pay me 1 pouch of golden essence coins as compensation." She immediately pointed at the pouch of spring welcoming coins. "For example, this one. I like this one. The offering coins and victory suppressing coins are ugly, and I don't like the inscriptions." Then Ning Yao raised her chin slightly. "If you're willing to pay me 2 pouches on top of the original deal, then I'll help you flatten Old Dragon City and Cloudglow Mountain. Of course, if I die to Liu Zhimao first, then forget everything I just said. My cultivation isn't very high right now. In the 9 realms of martial arts, I've only just entered the 6th realm. My pure physical strength has only reached the stage of toughness, nothing impressive yet. As for the 15-story ascent of cultivation, the 15 major realms, I've only reached the Dragon Gate realm within the middle 5 realms. In my inner alchemical chamber, I have 6 diagrams that still haven't received the final dragon dotting stroke, and I still can't make the celestial maidens fly." By this point, Chen Ping'an was completely lost. He had no idea what she was talking about. Ning Yao immediately became slightly embarrassed and angry. Low realm had always been a humiliation in her own eyes. Chen Ping'an's blank expression practically screamed, "Miss, please explain again." It struck exactly where she was most sensitive. Seeing her face darken, even Chen Ping'an knew danger was approaching. He quickly changed the subject. "How were you so badly injured before, but now you already seem more than half recovered?" Ning Yao lowered her face slightly. She folded both arms across her chest, her voice grew hoarse. "I really was close to death then. If Taoist Liu hadn't been able to save me, I would have. Anyway, I owe you an enormous favor, and I shouldn't take advantage of that by demanding all 3 pouches from you. My life isn't worth more than Liu Zhimao's. So I was wrong. Pretend I never said anything. After I leave the town, I'll do everything I reasonably can to help remove your future troubles. But I'll say this first. I, Ning Yao, will only do what lies within my ability. If I know with certainty that I'll die, I'm not going to throw my life away fighting someone just to trade lives." Perhaps admitting fault was extremely rare for her. Her mood sank noticeably after lowering her head. Chen Ping'an asked, "Which pouch contains the offering coins?" Ning Yao pointed at the golden embroidered pouch. Chen Ping'an opened it and took out 3 coins. After closing them in his palm, he pushed all 3 pouches across the table toward her. He smiled. "Here, they're yours." Ning Yao stared at him in disbelief. A long time passed before she finally recovered. "Chen Ping'an, did you get your head caught in a door when you were little?" he answered helplessly. "No, but when I used to herd cattle for people, I often got hit by cowtails." Ning Yao suddenly slammed the table. Her face turned furious. "Do you like me?" Chen Ping'an froze like a statue. Then Ning Yao grinned. She gave him a thumbs up. "Good taste." Next, she folded the thumb back and pointed at herself. Her eyes shone brightly. "But I won't agree. The man I, Ning Yao, like must be the greatest sword immortal beneath all heaven. All heaven, the greatest. A great sword immortal. Tao ancestors, Buddhas, Confucian sages before one strike of his sword. All of them must bow their heads and step aside." Chen Ping'an's face turned red. He scratched his head. "Miss Ning, you misunderstood. I don't like you." Ning Yao's brows rose. She thought for a moment. Then she leaned forward, narrowed one eye, and held up her thumb and index finger with only an inch between them. Her voice turned strangely uncertain. Not even this much? Chen Ping'an answered firmly and decisively. No, Miss Ning, don't worry. Ning Yao withdrew her hand and sighed heavily. She looked at him with pity. Chen Ping'an, even if you're lucky enough to marry someday, your wife will probably be an idiot. Chen Ping'an sat across the table and smiled cheerfully. As long as she's a good person, that's enough. Ning Yao declined to comment, eating enough and waiting peacefully for death, being content with little, rising rapidly through wealth and status. As her mother often said, everyone had their own fate. There was not necessarily any higher or lower among those paths. Her father disagreed. If something was absent from your destiny, then do not force it. Do not force it did not mean do not seek it. One should still seek. If, after seeking, one still failed to obtain it, that was another matter. Of course, her father would never dare say such things to her mother's face. Chen Ping'an casually asked, Miss Ning, did you also come to our town looking for an opportunity? Ning Yao had nothing to hide. I spent all the savings I had accumulated over the years, plus one favor, just to obtain a quota to enter this town. But I'm not like those people. I didn't come seeking fortune or accumulated destiny. I only want someone to forge me a sword. Preferably a sword that matches my heart. As for whether it's sharp enough or whether it can withstand massive amounts of sword qi, those are secondary matters. Chen Ping'an looked puzzled. Forge a sword? Ning Yao nodded. Master Wan, the blacksmith. He has a great reputation among people like us. He also has a rule that never changes. He forges only one sword every 30 years. The reason he was willing to come here and replace Qi Jingchun is because he believes this place is suitable for opening a furnace and forging swords. I came to test my luck and see whether he might be willing to make one for me. If he refuses, then there's nothing I can do. I'll just consider myself unlucky. Chen Ping'an smiled. Good people receive good fortune, Ning Yao replied weakly. Whatever, she glanced at him. Doesn't your left hand hurt? Chen Ping'an blinked. It hurts. She looked suspicious. You don't look like it does. Chen Ping'an answered as though the matter were obvious. Even if I roll on the ground and scream, it won't make the pain disappear. Ning Yao slapped her forehead. Unbelievable. You're exactly like my father. Except your abilities are nowhere near his. Chen Ping'an only smiled. He looked silently toward the courtyard outside. Ning Yao pushed the 3 pouches back toward him. I don't want them. Chen Ping'an looked away from the courtyard and spoke softly. Miss Ning, have you considered that keeping them may not be good for me? After meeting Master Qi today, I'm even more certain of that. Once Ning Yao decided something, she rarely changed her mind. She shook her head. That's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. I've already decided. I will repay the favor of having my life saved, and I will repay it fully. I refuse to disgrace the name Ning Yao. But you need to stay alive for the next few years. Don't die from some careless mistake. As long as you survive this period. For the first time, the usually polite boy interrupted her. Taoist Liu saved you, Miss Ning, so you don't need to feel that you owe me anything. At the time, I only opened the door because I thought I was going to die anyway. I wanted Taoist Liu to do a little more for my parents. Otherwise, I might not have opened it at all. Ning Yao snorted. That's your problem! Chen Ping'an smiled and repeated her own words. That's your problem. Big eyes stared at small eyes. In the end, Ning Yao was the first to give way. Mostly because the whole conversation was giving her a headache. If you like me, I really can't agree to that. Chen Ping'an grabbed his head with both hands. He was completely helpless against such a strange and stubborn girl. At that moment, someone climbed over the courtyard wall. There was only one person who would enter that way, Liu Xianyang. He jogged toward the back door and was about to shout at the top of his lungs when his voice suddenly died as though someone had grabbed his throat. Chen Ping'an quickly stood and walked over. He lowered his voice. Can I stay at your place for the next few days? This young lady may need to stay here. Liu Xianyang pushed Chen Ping'an's head to side like shooing away a fly. Then he rubbed his hands together eagerly and addressed Ning Yao. Miss, my house is much larger, and I've got everything you need. If you don't mind, how about staying at my place? With her back to both of them, Ning Yao said calmly. Annoying. Liu Xianyang grimaced. Still staring at the slender, saber-carrying silhouette, he refused to give up. Miss, you don't understand. Just now, 2 separate groups stopped me near the bridge and practically cried while begging me to sell them my family heirloom. I still refused. Those idiots delayed me so long that Master Ruan nearly cursed me to death. You're probably another outsider who came to this town looking for fortune. I, Liu Xianyang, may not necessarily sell you anything, but letting you take a look and broaden your horizons? That's no problem. Ning Yao remained cold. No need. Liu Xianyang shamelessly sat down in the spot Chen Ping'an had just vacated. The instant he saw Ning Yao's face clearly, his eyes lit up. Miss, there's no need to be polite. Chen Ping'an and I can stay together in this broken little house. If you move into my family residence, you won't feel cramped at all. You'll actually have room to put your hands and feet. Ning Yao frowned. I appreciate the thought. There is nothing else for you here. Liu Xianyang stood. All right. A golden nest or silver nest still isn't as comfortable as your own doghouse. I understand. Then he dragged Chen Ping'an outside and nudged him with an elbow. What's going on? Chen Ping'an looked troubled. It's too complicated to explain right now. So I can stay at your place, right? Liu Xianyang looked disdainful. What kind of question is that? Of course you can, but you have to promise me one thing. Keep an eye on Zhigui for me. Don't let that little bastard Song Jixin do anything outrageous. When the moment comes, you need to protect the purity of my future wife. Chen Ping'an answered without hesitation. Dream on. Liu Xianyang patted his shoulder solemnly. I'll take that as a yes. From inside the room, Ning Yao suddenly turned her head. She looked at Liu Xianyang. Do you know you're a natural sword embryo? The reason the porcelain buyer didn't take you away when you were 9 was probably because they wanted you to remain here longer and absorb more spiritual qi. That decision was correct. So while you're with Master Ruan, you need to seize the opportunity and make him accept you as a disciple. At minimum, become an inner disciple. Better yet, become a direct disciple. As for becoming his final disciple, don't dream too much. Your bones and natural talent aren't quite that extraordinary. Liu Xianyang grinned and nodded vigorously. Yes, sure. Then he turned toward Chen Ping'an. Then he pointed at his own head. Chen Ping'an said, she's telling the truth. Don't take her lightly. Liu Xianyang stopped joking. He became quiet. Then he said in a low voice, I also feel like something isn't right. Those 2 groups near the bridge, guess who led them? That turtle bastard Liu Zhimao from Fortune Street. Isn't that just a weasel paying New Year respects to a chicken? I never liked those people in the first place. Why would I trade with them? Besides, that suit of armor was left by generations of my family. If I sold it, my grandfather would curse me to death in my dreams. After hearing the whole story, Chen Ping'an immediately looked as though he were facing a dangerous enemy. You need to be careful. Liu Zhimao and those outsiders aren't easy to deal with. Then he turned. Miss Ning, do you know who they are? Ning Yao nodded. The old man and the little girl come from Righteous Sun Mountain. They're considered an orthodox sect here in Eastern Treasure Bottle Continent. The old man isn't human. In any case, he's at least 100 times more dangerous than Fu Nanhua or Qi Jingchun. The woman and her son aren't simple either. Anyone able to enter this town together obviously isn't merely rich. That woman has a deep and calculating heart. Her son doesn't look kind either. So I advise your friend to get Master Ruan to accept him as a disciple as quickly as possible. That would be the same as carrying a life-saving talisman. Inside this town, no matter how powerful someone's background may be, no one will dare attack while that sage stands behind him. Chen Ping'an asked Liu Xianyang, Are you confident Master Ruan will take you as a disciple? Liu Xianyang looked awkward. Well, that part probably isn't a problem. On my first day working there, Master Ruan looked at me the same way Old Man Yao used to. I figure he wants to observe me for a while before deciding whether to accept me. It's just. Chen Ping'an glared hard. Liu Xianyang gave an embarrassed laugh. Master Ruan has this precious daughter. She's especially attractive. So I joked around with her a little. I didn't expect that when she starts hammering iron, she swings that hammer like a war god. Normally she's incredibly shy. How was I supposed to know she couldn't take a joke? I made her cry. And of course her father walked in at exactly that moment. The way he looked at me afterward. Well, I'm not sure it won't affect the whole disciple thing. But anyway, I don't really want to become someone's servant and work like an ox and horse. Putting up with Old Man Yao's terrible temper was already enough. I don't want to depend on a blacksmith shop for food anymore. Chen Ping'an slowly raised his head. His face went dark. Liu Xianyang was half a head taller than him. Yet the tall boy lowered his head and did not dare meet Chen Ping'an's eyes. The scene left Ning Yao genuinely puzzled. It was also the first time she had seen Chen Ping'an truly angry. He asked in a low voice, When the strange thing happened beneath the old scholar tree, did some scholar tree leaves appear on you from nowhere? Liu Xianyang shook his head. No. But that fortune-telling Taoist who likes staring at women said a few unlucky things to me. I nearly smashed his whole stall. Chen Ping'an's expression shifted. His brows drew together. He turned toward the room. Miss Ning, let's make a deal. 3 pouches of golden essence coins. Will that work? And one more thing. Will this bring you serious trouble? Please tell me clearly before agreeing. Ning Yao thought carefully. The trouble won't be small, but it shouldn't become a major problem. For the next few days, though, everyone needs to be careful. Tell your friend not to wander around causing trouble. I still don't fully understand the situation, she added. 2 groups, 2 pouches. Getting Master Ruan to accept him as a disciple costs 1 more. In short, I collect a pouch only after finishing the corresponding task. Don't worry, since I've agreed, I'm confident I can earn at least 2. Chen Ping'an ran into the house. He quickly brought out 2 pouches of spring welcoming coins and handed them to her. Take them. Ning Yao had never been the sort to hesitate endlessly. She accepted both. Then she gave him a smile that did not reach her eyes. There really are people in this world who shove money into someone else's pockets? And you enjoy playing the little wealth-scattering child? This time Chen Ping'an did not argue. He nodded and smiled. Money is important. Very important. Very, very important. Liu Xianyang still had no idea what was really happening. He spoke anxiously. Chen Ping'an, are you insane? Why are you giving her money? 2 whole pouches. Do you have any idea how long that could support you? Chen Ping'an snapped. It's my money. What business is it of yours? Liu Xianyang replied with perfect confidence. Your money isn't my money too? Think about it. If I borrowed money from you, would you really have the nerve to ask me to pay it back? Chen Ping'an fell silent. He genuinely thought about the question. Liu Xianyang also realized that his joke had come at the wrong time. He closed his mouth. For a while, the atmosphere in the room became heavy. Chen Ping'an asked, Miss Ning, are you really sure this won't? Ning Yao glanced toward the snow-white sheathed sword on the table. She nodded. No problem. Then she finally lost patience. You're so long-winded. Isn't it annoying? And you still claim you aren't a good person? Chen Ping'an smiled. Xianyang thought for a moment but said nothing. The tall boy swallowed the words he had wanted to speak. He thought that this girl probably had not yet seen Chen Ping'an's other side. Chen Ping'an rarely found conversation difficult, but once he did, he truly had no idea how to speak. Liu Xianyang had seen that side of him. Song Jingchun next door probably had too. Not long after Liu Xianyang entered Mud Bottle Alley, another rare visitor arrived. Zhao Yao. The young scholar wore a green robe and carried himself with elegant restraint. At a glance, there were even a few traces of resemblance to the village schoolteacher, Qi Jingchun. Zhao Yao was the eldest grandson of one of the town's 4 great aristocratic families. Unlike Liu Zhimao, who spent his days idling and indulging himself, Zhao Yao had also been born into wealth, but his reputation was excellent. Many widows, orphans, and elderly people throughout the town had received his help over the years. If one insisted on interpreting the matter according to books and called it a famous young gentleman cultivating reputation among the common people, that would probably be too cynical toward Zhao Yao's intentions. After all, he had already possessed this habit of helping others from the age of 10. Year after year, he had never once grown lazy about it. Even elders from Fortune Street who had watched him grow up would raise a thumb whenever they mentioned Zhao Yao. When scolding their own sons and grandsons, they almost always used him as an example. Naturally, this had also made it difficult for Zhao Yao to make friends among people his own age. Young men like Liu Zhimao lived freely and hated spending time with a bookworm whose entire world revolved around classical texts. Imagine everyone enthusiastically climbing a wall to secretly watch an attractive widow bathing, only for someone beside them to remind them solemnly, "Do not look at what is improper." How could that not ruin the mood? So over the years, Zhao Yao had preferred dealing with people outside Fortune Street. He had walked through nearly every large and small alley in the town. The one exception was Mud Bottle Alley, because Song Jingchun lived there. Among all the people of his generation, Song Jingchun was the one person who repeatedly made Zhao Yao feel inferior. If he truly had to name a friend, Zhao Yao would probably acknowledge only Song Jingchun, his chess companion. For years, Zhao Yao had lost almost every game they played, yet the desire to win remained the desire to win. His obsession with defeating Song Jingchun on the board had never faded. Deep down, Zhao Yao truly admired Song Jingchun's astonishing talent. What left him somewhat disappointed was an instinctive feeling that, although Song Jingchun often joked and laughed with him and the two appeared extremely close, Song Jingchun had never genuinely regarded him as a true intimate friend. Zhao Yao had never visited Song Jingchun's home before. Even so, the moment he saw one particular courtyard, he knew it had to be Song Jingchun's. The reason was the Spring Festival couplets pasted beside the entrance. There were many characters, and one glance was enough to tell they had been written by Song Jingchun. The reason was simple. The style changed far too much from character to character. It was almost as though every single word had been written by a different person. For example, the two characters meaning riding the wind flowed in one continuous movement, free and unconstrained, carrying an almost weightless grace. The character for abyss, especially the water radical at the side, seemed deep enough to contain endless meaning. Another character was written with a vast, rising stroke and astonishing force, like 10,000 thunderbolts descending together. Yet the character for nation had been written upright, balanced, and peaceful, like a sage sitting in proper posture, without the slightest flaw anyone could point out. Zhao Yao stood before the courtyard entrance and nearly forgot to knock. His body leaned slightly forward. He stared at the writing in a daze. almost losing the courage to announce himself. Precisely because Zhao Yao had practiced calligraphy diligently and copied so many different model scripts, he understood even more clearly the tremendous strength, weight, and spirit hidden within these characters. His expression dimmed. He took out a pouch of coins. Then he turned and placed it beside the gate, preparing to leave without saying goodbye. At that exact moment, the courtyard door suddenly opened. Zhao Yao raised his head. Song Jixin appeared to be preparing to go out with Jigui. The two were chatting and laughing. Song Jixin looked at the pouch on the ground and deliberately widened his eyes. Zhao Yao, what's this grand ceremony supposed to mean? Are you planning to propose to me? Zhao Yao looked embarrassed. He quickly picked up the pouch and was about to explain when Song Jixin reached out and took it directly from his hand. Song Jixin laughed. Ah, I see. Zhao Yao has come to my door bearing gifts. Then naturally I should accept. But first, don't start telling me what you want in return. I'm a poor man. I don't have any gift worthy of Brother Zhao's eyes. Still, one should never receive without returning something. Zhao Yao smiled bitterly. This pouch of victory suppressing coins is meant as a farewell gift. There's no need to return anything. Song Jixin turned toward his maid and gave her a knowing smile. See? I told you Zhao Yao is the scholar who understands ritual best in this whole town. Was I wrong? Jigui accepted the pouch and pressed it lightly against her chest. Her eyes narrowed with genuine happiness. Then she bent slightly and performed a graceful curtsy. Many thanks, young Master Zhao. My young master often says that a household that accumulates virtue will surely possess abundant joy, and a person who performs good deeds will surely cultivate a field of blessings. This servant wishes young Master Zhao a single step into the heavens, and a journey of 10,000 lie upon the wind. Zhao Yao immediately cupped his hands in return. Thank you for the auspicious words, Miss Jigui. Song Jixin rubbed the back of his head and yawned. Aren't the two of you tired? Jigui smiled. If every curtsy earned me 1 pouch of coins, this servant could perform 10,000 of them and never feel tired. A trace of sweat appeared on Zhao Yao's forehead. I'm afraid I'll disappoint Miss Jigui. Song Jixin swept one arm grandly through the air. Come on, let's drink. Zhao Yao looked troubled. Song Jixin immediately provoked him. What a useless bag of straw. You've read all those books and learned nothing but rigid rules. Not even the slightest elegance of a free-spirited scholar. How is that acceptable? Zhao Yao cautiously asked. Just a little, for pleasure? Song Jixin looked at him with disdain. We don't go home until we're drunk. Zhao Yao opened his mouth to answer. Song Jixin had already hooked an arm around his neck and dragged him away. As Jigui locked the courtyard gate, the little lizard tried to sneak outside. She kicked it straight back into the yard. When she passed the neighboring house, she quietly rose onto her toes and peeked over several times. She saw Liu Xianyang's tall figure inside. He noticed her too. His whole face immediately lit up with a bright smile. Liu Xianyang was just about to greet her when Jigui withdrew her gaze and hurried away. There was an inn and wine house in town. It was not large. Its prices were not cheap either. Still, Zhao Yao was a descendant of the Zhao family and a refined customer. The proprietor was notorious for being so stingy that one could not squeeze oil from him. Yet for some unknown reason, today he slapped his chest and declared he would not accept a single copper coin. To have 2 scholars honor his little establishment with their presence was already glory enough. If anything, he claimed, he should be paying them. Song Jixin immediately burst into laughter and held out his hand. Then give me a few silver ingots. The proprietor nearly tripped over himself trying to escape the trap he had created. He hurriedly said he did not have enough on hand, but promised to send several jars of excellent wine to the young master the next morning. Zhao Yao wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. The proprietor had long understood the strange temperament of young Master Song from Mud Bottle Alley, so he did not truly become angry. He personally escorted the 3 upstairs and found them a quiet table beside a window. Song Jixin and Zhao Yao did not actually talk much, nor did Song Jixin force him to drink. This left Zhao Yao, who had arrived mentally prepared to face death itself, feeling strangely bewildered. From the 2nd floor window, they could see one of the plaques hanging from the 12-pillared archway. Its inscription read, "Yield to none when duty calls." Song Jixin asked, Master Qi really isn't leaving the town with you? Zhao Yao nodded. Sir changed his plans at the last moment. He said he would remain at the school until he finished teaching the second-to-last chapter, Observing Ritual. Song Jixin sighed. So Master Qi intends to explain a great principle. The Confucian sage taught the world that in the beginning there was no law. The sages used ritual to transform and educate all living beings in those days. Rulers and nobles revered ritual. They believed that once someone crossed the boundaries of ritual, punishment would follow, and from there came law. Ritual and law. First ritual, then law. Zhao Yao was already slightly drunk. His words had begun to blur. Do you think that's right? Then why doesn't Sir simply teach the final chapter, Restraining Ritual? Song Jixin did not answer directly. Before leaving the town, things like mountain spirits, water ghosts, immortals, and demons are all the same. If you believe, they exist. If you don't, they don't. As for how Master Qi teaches and how his students understand, that is already part of heaven's decree. Jigui had also drunk a cup. Her face carried a faint, intoxicated smile. From beginning to end, she had never once looked at the towering archway. The stone bases beneath its 12 pillars were carved with the 9 strange beasts known as the dragon's 9 sons. There were 3 others as well: the white tiger, the black tortoise, and the vermilion bird. Generations of townspeople had lived beneath those carvings. To them, there was nothing strange about any of it anymore. Zhao Yao finally could not endure the drinking session any longer. He stood unsteadily. "We should say goodbye here. I hope we meet again." Song Jixin thought for a moment, then also stood. He smiled. "We definitely will. Zhao Yao, do not grieve that the road ahead has no kindred spirit. Beneath heaven, who will not know your name?" Zhao Yao's eyes shone. He bit his tongue to keep his words clear and replied with complete sincerity. "Song Jixin, you should leave the town soon too. Beneath heaven, who will not know your name? You definitely can." Song Jixin clearly did not take the words seriously. He waved a hand. "Go on. You're drunk and rambling. Don't ruin your reputation." After leaving the winehouse, Zhao Yao and Song Jixin went their separate ways. Before departing, perhaps borrowing courage from the wine, Zhao Yao finally asked, "Song Jixin, do you want to go see the residence of the Imperial Kiln Supervisor? I could probably persuade the gatekeeper." Song Jixin's expression instantly hardened. One word shot between his teeth: "Get lost." Zhao Yao left with a darkened expression. Jigui watched his retreating figure and said quietly, "Young master, he meant well." Song Jixin sneered. "In this world, are there really so few good people with good intentions who end up doing bad things and creating terrible consequences?" Jigui thought about it. The depressing and tedious logic actually seemed to make sense. So she stopped arguing. Fortune Street, where the Zhao family lived, lay north of town. Mud Bottle Alley, where poor households gathered, lay to the west. When Song Jixin and Jigui passed beneath the archway side by side, she finally raised her head and looked at the plaque reading "Spirit Soars to the Dipper and Ox." It seemed like an old man approaching the end of his life. The girl whose original name was Wang Zhu smiled without showing her teeth. After Zhao Yao returned to the Zhao ancestral residence on Fortune Street, a servant informed him that the family matriarch was waiting in the study. He was to go there immediately. Not even a quarter hour's delay was permitted. The green-robed young scholar, still reeking of alcohol, immediately panicked and hurried toward the study. The Zhao family never flaunted its wealth inside the town. Its prosperity was restrained and hidden. Unlike the Liu family, whose arrogance was almost impossible to conceal, the Zhao clan preferred to present itself as a scholarly household. Their study truly did possess an old-fashioned, elegant atmosphere. An elderly woman holding a walking cane stood beside a writing desk. One hand slowly brushed across the surface of the table. Her weathered face was filled with melancholy and memories. She smelled the heavy alcohol on her eldest grandson before he even stepped through the door. Yet she was not angry. She smiled and beckoned. "Yaoer, come inside. Why are you standing at the door? What's wrong with a man drinking a little wine? It isn't horse piss. There's nothing shameful about it." Zhao Yao entered with a bitter smile and bowed to his ancestor with great respect. The old woman immediately looked impatient. This is what happens when people read too many books. Everything becomes rules and formality. Scholars spend their whole lives walking in circles like ghosts trapped behind a wall. Ridiculous. Your grandfather was exactly like that. In everything else, he was willing to stand at the front. But the moment he started explaining great principles to me, he would go on and on without end. Truly irritating. And that expression of his while he was doing it, tsk, it made you want to hit him. I couldn't out-argue him. Sometimes I wanted nothing more than to swing my walking stick at him. The old woman suddenly laughed at herself. She laughed heartily. "I almost forgot. I didn't even need a walking stick back then." Still smiling, she asked, "So? You went drinking with that ungrateful little white-eyed wolf Song?" Zhao Yao answered helplessly. "Grandmother, how many times have I told you? Song Jixin is extremely gifted in letters. His comprehension is exceptional. No matter what he learns, he seems to understand it one step faster than everyone else." The old woman snorted. "Oh, he's clever all right. Probably the cleverest of the lot, but your grandfather said before he died that the boy is exactly like his father. He had that character figured out long ago. Want to know how your grandfather described him?" Zhao Yao hurriedly replied, "Your grandson does not." The old woman ignored whether her precious grandson wanted to hear it. She continued anyway. "Your grandfather said, so young, yet already so deep in schemes and calculation. What a pity his ancestor's reputation was rotten. This boy will surely be the same."